Welcome back to Quarter Dollar. Imagine reaching into an old coffee can, pulling out a worn Kennedy $half, and finding out it's not worth 50 cents. It's worth more than a brand new luxury car or even a house. For most people, these big, heavy coins are just pocket change from the past. But a tiny number of them have secret mint errors, rare dates, and almost perfect condition that can launch their value into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in a few shocking cases, well past the $450,000 mark. In this video, we're going to walk through the most valuable Kennedy $half ever discovered. And I'll show you exactly what to look for so you can spot a life-changing coin hiding in plain sight. If you love finding treasure in your own collection, make sure you subscribe right now so you never miss my next big coin discovery. Take a close look at this first coin on the screen. At a glance, it just looks like an ordinary 1960s $half. It's worn, the shine is mostly gone, there are little dark spots on Kennedy's cheek and neck, and the details in his hair are soft from years of use. This is a 1968 Kennedy $half, and this exact kind of nothing special coin is what most people toss into a jar or spend without a second thought. But buried inside this one simple date is a secret that can turn 50 cents into a jaw-dropping, six-figure payday. 1968 was only the fifth year of the Kennedy $half, and the country was still getting used to this new design. On the front, you've got that classic left-facing portrait of President Kennedy, the word liberty, wrapping around the top, and the motto, "In God We Trust," broken on either side of his neck. Down at the bottom, you see the date 1968, and just above it, a tiny mint mark. On most of these, it's a D for Denver, and that little letter can make all the difference. Now, the coin you're seeing is in circulated condition. You can see the flatness on the high points of the hair, the soft ear, and those little contact marks all across the surface. It tells us it spent years in pockets, cash drawers, maybe even jukeboxes. In this shape, a normal 1968 $half is mostly worth its silver content. Because remember, from 1965 through 1970, these Kennedys were made of 40% silver. At today's silver prices, a worn 1968 like this usually brings around $5 to $10. Not bad for pocket change, but nothing that will change your life. But here's where things get interesting. Most people stop right there. They see where, they think junk silver, and they move on. Serious collectors go one step further. They look for sharp strikes, clean fields, and rare mistakes from the mint. A 1968 D Kennedy half that somehow survived in blazing, uncirculated condition, with strong luster and almost no marks, can jump from that $5 or $10 up into the hundreds, even low thousands, especially in the very highest certified grades. Only a tiny handful have been graded near perfect, and those get fierce bidding wars at auction. And then, in a world most people never hear about, are the true monsters. Rare error coins. That's where this date turns from nice find into, are you kidding me? Imagine a 1968 Kennedy $half that was struck not once but twice with the second strike off center so you can see a second ghostly profile of Kennedy overlapping the first. Or a coin struck on the wrong planchet, maybe on a leftover thicker silver blank or with a dramatic clipped edge or with missing details on the back where the designer's initials should be. When one of these shows up and it's also in nearly perfect condition, the price can rocket into unbelievable territory. Collectors love 1960s $half like this because they sit right at the crossroads. Modern enough that millions were made, but early enough that silver and striking quality still matter. That means most examples are common. But the rare ones are hiding in plain sight. A spectacular 1968 Kennedy $half with a dramatic double strike or wrong planchet error, graded at the very top by A major service can attract bidders willing to pay $450,000 or more, all for a coin everyone else walked past for decades. So what should you look for if you have a handful of these at home? First, separate the 1968s and check the mint mark under Kennedy's neck. Then study the rim. Is it round and even, or does it look clipped or off-center? Look at the lettering. Is anything doubled, especially in Liberty, or in God We Trust? On the back, check the eagle's feathers and the tiny initials near the tail. Any missing parts, extra outlines, or strange shapes are a big red flag that you might have something special. And this is the same kind of careful checking you may already do with your state quarters. Strong details, odd shapes, doubling, and anything that just looks off. That's exactly how people have pulled life-changing coins out of coffee cans and bank rolls. Most 1968 Kennedys will be worth silver money only, just like the one you're seeing. But if even one has that wild mint error and top-end condition, you're suddenly holding a six-figure treasure in the palm of your hand. And believe it or not, our next Kennedy half-dollar cranks the excitement up even higher, with a story that starts in the very first year of issue and ends with collectors paying more than most people's retirement savings. Next up, let me show you a coin that most folks would walk right past without a second glance. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous to ignore. On your screen now is a 1972 Kennedy half-dollar. At first sight, it looks tired. The surfaces are dull. That original mint shine is long gone, and you can see soft wear across Kennedy's hair, cheek, and jaw. Tiny scratches from years in pockets and change jars run across the coin, and there's a faint dark stain running near the neck and the words "In God We Trust." This is the kind of coin most people would throw into a junk change bag. But hiding inside this ordinary date is one of the biggest what-if stories in the Kennedy series. Let's start with what we can see. This 1972 has clearly been circulated. The high points in the hair are smooth, almost blended together. Kennedy's cheek and jawline don't have sharp edges anymore. They've been rounded off by thousands of tiny bumps and rubs. The rim is still complete, but it's not razor sharp. The surface has that gray, flat look that tells you it lived a long, hard life in everyday commerce. In this kind of shape, a normal 1972 half-dollar is basically worth face value. Maybe a small premium to a collector filling a cheap album, but we're talking pocket change. So why are we even talking about it in a video about most valuable coins? Because 1972 is one of those sleeper years. The mint struck these by the hundreds of millions. Most look exactly like this one, worn, common, and ignored. But tucked among them are a few rare varieties and dramatic mint mistakes that can send the value into the stratosphere, especially in high grade. Now, your coin here does not show any obvious wild error. It's centered correctly. The letters are aligned. There's no big off-center strike, no huge die crack splitting the date. It's a normal, circulated example. In this condition, even a better variety might only bring a few dollars. But imagine the same date, 1972, that never went into circulation. Imagine it looked nothing like this one. Full mint luster blazing from every angle, no scratches on the cheek, every tiny hair and line sharp, sealed in a top-tier holder from a major grading service. A coin like that, from a year most collectors ignore, suddenly becomes a magnet for serious money. High-grade, uncirculated 1972 halves already bring strong prices in top condition. The population is small because most of these coins were treated like this one, spent, rolled, stored in bags, banged around. A pristine, frosty 1972 in nearly perfect condition can jump from $1 to several hundred or even a few $1,000s at auction. That's already a huge leap from pocket change. But now let's push this story where it really starts to shock. Every once in a while, at the mint, something goes very wrong. A die gets overpolished and wipes away details. A blank planchet meant for another denomination sneaks under the press. A coin gets struck twice or off-center or on a leftover silver planchet that should have been melted years earlier. When that happens on a common date like 1972, collectors lose their minds because nobody was saving these coins. Most would have been spent, just like the one you're looking at now. Picture this. A 1972 Kennedy $half struck on a wrong planchet, maybe a leftover silver blank from a special mint run, or on a thicker planchet that gives it a heavier, richer feel. The strike is bold, the coin is never circulated, and it gets discovered only when some sharp-eyed collector weighs it and realizes something's not right. It goes to a grading service. They confirm it. Wrong planchet, dramatic mint error, nearly perfect condition. At that point, it's no longer a 50-cent piece, it's a one-of-a-kind showpiece. A monster error like that, tied to a date as common as 1972, could easily push into six-figure territory. Imagine a major auction where 2 or 3 deep-pocketed Kennedy specialists decide they absolutely must own it. Bidding starts at $10,000, jumps to $50,000, then $100,000. The coin has great eye appeal, a dramatic story, and a pop of only one known. By the time the hammer falls, that 1972 mistake could be knocking on the door of $320,000 or more, all because someone somewhere decided to look a little closer at what everyone else thought was just another modern $half. And this is where your own collection comes in. When you sort through rolls, coffee cans, and old bank bags, most of your 1972 halves will look like the coin on the screen. Worn, gray, nothing special. But don't just weigh them by the handful and move on. Take a moment with each date. Look at the edges. Check for odd thickness, strange colors in the metal, rims that look too wide or too thin. Spin them under a good light and watch for shadows that don't line up right. Anything that feels off should be set aside for a second look. Think about how many people handle these coins without ever really seeing them. Cashiers, bank tellers, vending machines. For them, a 1972 half is just heavy change. For you, it might be the key to a life-changing find. That's the same mindset you use when hunting for valuable state quarters. Most are common, but a double die, a missing clad layer, or a wrong planchet can turn a simple quarter into a treasure. The exact same rules apply here. Now, will every 1972 $half turn into a $300,000 payday? Of course not. Almost all of them are worth what they say on the face. But here's the point. The rare ones don't come with a bright red sticker that says, "I'm valuable." They look almost exactly like this tired coin, until you notice that one tiny clue, a missing detail, a strange weight, a second outline where there should be only one. That's why I love showing coins like this 1972 in worn condition. It reminds us that the most exciting discoveries don't always shine. They hide in plain sight, in the same change everyone else gives back without a thought. Somewhere out there, in a roll, a bag, or an old dresser drawer, is the kind of 1972 error that could pay off a mortgage or fund a grandchild's college. So before you cash in those old $half, slow down. Give every 1972 a second look. The one that seems a little strange might be the ticket to a six-figure surprise. And stay tuned, because the next Kennedy $half in this countdown takes rarity, history, and sheer dollar value to an even more unbelievable level. Moving on, let's talk about a date most people would never in a million years expect to be worth serious money. On your screen now is a 1973 Kennedy $half. At first glance, it looks like the kind of coin you'd get back from a bank teller and toss straight into a coffee can. The shine is mostly gone. The surface has that flat gray look. and you can see a whole lifetime of little nicks and rubs across Kennedy's face and neck. Look closely at the hair. Instead of sharp, separate strands, it's all blended together, almost soft and mushy on the high points. The cheek and jawline are rounded from wear, not crisp. There's a faint slide mark that runs from the back of the head down toward the motto, like this coin spent years scraping against other coins in change drawers and vending machines. The rim is still complete, but not razor sharp. This is a classic, honestly circulated 1973 half dollar. In this condition, a normal 1973 is worth right around face value. Maybe a little bit more if silver ever sneaks into the conversation, but remember, by 1971, the government had removed the silver from regular Kennedy halves. So this coin in the image is worth about 50 cents to a bank, and maybe $1 or $2 to a casual collector who just wants to fill a hole in an album. So why in the world are we including 1973 in a list of potential life-changing Kennedys? Because this is one of those years that hides its treasures very, very well. The story starts with history. In the early 1970s, a lot of Americans had already stopped using half dollars in daily change. They were too big, too heavy, and vending machines didn't want them. So huge numbers of 1973 halves went straight from the mint into bags and storage, then into bulk counts at the Federal Reserve. Most people never checked them carefully. That's the perfect setup for rare varieties and dramatic mint errors to go unnoticed for decades. Now, imagine the total opposite of the coin you're looking at. Instead of that dull gray, picture a 1973 with booming luster, like someone dipped it in liquid chrome. Every little detail in the hair jumps out. The cheek is smooth and free of nicks, no slide marks, no fingerprints, no dull spots. That kind of uncirculated 1973 certified by a major grading service in a very high grade is already worth real money. We're talking hundreds of dollars, and for the finest known examples, even creeping into low five figures. But that's just the warm-up. Where the numbers go crazy is when rarity and error meet condition. Every once in a while, something at the mint goes off script. A planchet of the wrong metal slides in, a die shifts, a coin gets struck twice or off-center or on a leftover experimental blank. For a date like 1973, those mistakes are not supposed to exist. And when they do, serious Kennedy collectors will fight tooth and nail to own them. Picture this. A 1973 Kennedy half dollar struck on a leftover 40% silver planchet from the late 1960s, or even on an experimental clad that was never meant to see daylight. It leaves the press with perfect, sharp details and a slightly different color and weight than a normal coin. Nobody notices. It gets bagged, boxed, and maybe even rolled by a bank. Somehow, instead of being chewed up in circulation like the coin on your screen, it ends up tucked away in a small roll that sits in a drawer for 40 or 50 years. One day, a collector like you opens that old roll. Most of the coins look like this worn 1973. Gray, tired, nothing to write home about. But one coin is brighter, heavier. When he puts it on a scale, it doesn't match the standard weight. That's when things get interesting. It goes off to a grading service. They test it, weigh it, and confirm the nightmare for the mint, dream come true for you. Wrong planchet, high grade, first time ever seen for this date. At that point, we're not talking about a $10 coin anymore. We're talking serious auction material. A one-of-a-kind or even one-of-two known 1973 wrong planchet Kennedy in nearly perfect condition could easily roar past $350,000 when the right bidders show up. Remember, you've got Kennedy specialists, error specialists, and deep-pocketed silver collectors all circling the same prize. Once two of them decide they must have it, the hammer price can go places nobody expected. And it's not just wrong planchets. Imagine a 1973 with a dramatic double strike, where Kennedy's profile is clearly visible twice, or an off-center strike so wild that part of the design is missing, but the date is fully visible. In top-end uncirculated shape, a showpiece like that is exactly the kind of coin major auction houses put on the front of their catalogs. A spectacular 1973 double strike error in gem condition could bring $420,000 or more, especially if it's the finest example known. Now, how does that help you when you're sorting through your own coins? Start exactly where this video started, with what you can see. Most of your 1973s will look like the coin on the screen. Worn surfaces, soft hair detail, random little scratches. Those are common and worth about face value, but every time you see the date 1973, slow down. Check the edge. Does it look normal, or is there a strange color like extra copper or missing clad? Feel the weight in your fingers. If one coin feels just a bit heavier or lighter than the rest, put it aside and weigh it. Then, look for anything that doesn't line up. Is the rim thicker on one side than the other? Are the letters too close to the edge? Is there a second outline around any of the words or around Kennedy's profile? Any of those signs could mean you've got an off-center strike, a broad strike, or a double die. And that's when you start talking about hundreds, thousands, or in the right grade, six figures. The coin you're seeing right now tells a different story. It's the before picture. This is what almost every 1973 looks like after 50 years of work. It's honest change. Nothing wrong with it, except it hides how special the rare ones really are. The worn cheek and flat hair remind us that most coins live a rough life. The treasure is when one escapes that life completely, or when a mistake at the mint brands it forever as something unique. So, the next time you spill out a jar of old $50, don't let the dates blur together. When you hit 1973, give each one its moment under the light. 99 times out of 100, you'll see exactly what you're seeing here. A hard-working 50-cent piece with stories you'll never know. But that one time, the coin that looks or feels just a little bit strange is that might be the 1973 that pays off a house, wipes out debt, or funds a grandchild's future. And the best part, the folks who spent it, rolled it, and stored it away all those years had no idea. They treated it like any other $50. That's the magic of this hobby. Life-changing money hiding in plain sight. Stay with me, because the next Kennedy $50 in this countdown takes that same idea and cranks it up even higher, with a date and a story that will make you want to go back and recheck every single coin you've ever handled. Next up, I want to show you a coin that plays a very sneaky trick on almost every collector. On the screen now is a 1967 Kennedy $50. At first glance, it looks like just another silver-era half. But if you only trust that first glance, this is exactly the kind of coin that can slip through your fingers and cost you a small fortune. Look closely at the front side first. You can see this coin has lived a real life. The high points of the hair are smooth and blended together, not sharp and crisp, like a fresh coin from a mint set. The cheek and jaw have that soft, rounded look that only comes from years of sliding in and out of pockets and cash drawers. There are small contact marks scattered across the surface. Little lines and ticks on the face and in the open fields. Up near the top of the head, there's a light brown spot of toning, almost like a tiny stain, and another bit of discoloration near the neck. The original shine has turned into more of a dull, silvery gray. Now flip to the back side in your mind. Suddenly, the story changes. The eagle, the shield, and the lettering on this reverse still look surprisingly strong. Feathers are better defined, the shield lines are still clear, and there's a brighter, more even glow to the surface. The rim is full and solid, with no big dents or gouges. So you've got this odd split personality, a front that clearly saw moderate circulation, and a back that looks like it was protected for part of its life. That contrast is great for your video because it shows viewers exactly how uneven wear can be on a real working coin. In this kind of circulated condition, a normal 1967 half is mostly worth its silver. Remember, from 1965 through 1970, these coins were 40% silver. At today's silver prices, a worn 1967 like this usually brings a handful of dollars over face value if you sell it for melt. Maybe in that $5 to $10 range, depending on the market. Nice to find in change, but not exactly retirement money. But here's where the 1967 date gets dangerous and exciting. The government struck a huge number of these, over 295 million 1967 halves, one of the biggest runs of the entire silver era. And there's another twist. There were no regular mint marks that year. So every 1967 looks pretty much the same at first. No letter under the neck, just the date. Most people stop right there and throw them all in the junk silver pile. Collectors who know the full story do something very different. In 1967, the mint was also making something special called special mint sets instead of normal proof sets. These coins were given extra care and a nicer finish. They weren't meant for circulation at all. Tucked inside those sets are 1967 halves that look nothing like the coin you're seeing now. On those, the surfaces are smooth and satiny, the details are razor sharp, and some even have deep mirror-like fields with frosty, icy-looking raised parts. In top grades, those SMS coins are already worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. One carefully preserved 1967 in blazing uncirculated condition, graded very high by a major service, can already jump from silver melt value to strong 3 or even 4-figure money. We've seen top-end pieces bring several $1,000s at auction just for being nearly perfect in a sea of beat-up coins like the one in your hand. But that's still not the end of the story. Every once in a while, something goes very wrong during production. For 1967, specialists have found wild double-die varieties where parts of the lettering show clear extra images, and even a special quintuple die variety in the mint set coins where the motto shows wild extra outlines under magnification. There are also off-center strikes, clipped planchets, wrong planchet pieces, and coins that were improperly heated, giving them strange, blotchy colors. Now imagine combining three things together: the right year, the right special production, and the right kind of mint mistake, and all in almost perfect condition. Picture a 1967 half from a special mint set that somehow got struck on the wrong planchet, maybe on a leftover 90% silver blank or a different experimental metal. And on top of that, it shows a dramatic doubled motto that you can see clearly without even straining your eyes. The coin never goes into circulation. It sits sealed in a government holder for decades, protected from fingerprints and wear. One day, a sharp-eyed collector spots the strange color, weighs it, sees the doubling, and sends it in for grading. The grading service confirms everything: wrong metal, special mint set finish, dramatic doubled die, and a near-perfect grade. Suddenly, we're not talking about a $5 silver piece. We're talking about a one-of-a-kind trophy. A coin like that would bring out the heavy hitters: Kennedy half collectors, error specialists, silver fanatics, and registry set builders all wanting the same prize. At auction, a unique 1967 SMS wrong planchet, double die half in nearly flawless condition could easily soar past $300,000. With the right story and eye appeal, it's realistic to imagine bidding pushing that coin into the neighborhood of $380,000. That's the kind of number that makes people sit up straight when they see 1967 on the date. So how do you turn this story into real money when you're searching? Start exactly where this image starts, with honest circulated coins. Most 1967 halves you find will look like this one: worn on the front, a little stronger on the back, a few spots of toning, nothing screaming "I'm special." Set those aside for silver value if you want. But when you find a 1967 that still has strong, original luster, no wear on the hair, and very clean fields, don't treat it like junk silver. Spin it under a bright light and look closely at every word. Check the motto and the date. Do you see any clear extra outlines? Not just a little shadow from movement, but real doubling in the letters or numbers. That could be a double die. Look at the rim. Is the strike perfectly centered, Or is there more blank space on one side than the other? Any slide off center can mean a valuable error. Weigh the coin if it feels just a bit too heavy or too light compared to the others. A different metal blank changes the weight, and that's your first clue to a monster wrong planchet find. If you open old special mint sets from the 1960s, pay even closer attention to the 1967 halves. They should be nicer than normal circulation coins. If one stands out as having extremely deep mirror-like fields and super frosty details, that might be a high-end cameo or deep cameo piece. Those already bring a premium on their own. Add in a dramatic error, and now you're flirting with the kind of six-figure stories we've been talking about. What I love about this particular coin image is that it teaches a powerful lesson. On the front, you see everyday wear, the soft cheek, the dull gray, that little brown spot on the hair. It whispers common. On the back, you see that surprisingly nice detail and brighter surface that hint at how these looked when they were new. Somewhere between those two extremes, the beat-up silver like this one and the untouched, perfect, error-loaded survivors, lives a tiny handful of 1967 halves worth life-changing money. So the next time you see a pile of 1967 Kennedy halves, don't just sell them by weight and walk away. Sort them. Look for the ones that shine a bit more. Check for doubling. In the words, odd rims, strange colors, or off-weights. 99 out of 100 will be regular silver pieces, but that one coin, the special one, could be the 1967 that changes your whole story. And we are not done yet. If you think a common year like 1967 can hide a $380,000 surprise, wait until you see the next Kennedy half in this countdown. A date and a variety that has turned ordinary pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime payday more than once. All right, here's where things get really interesting. Next up, we're jumping all the way to 1980. A year most collectors completely ignore, and that's exactly why this coin can be so dangerous to overlook. On your screen, you're seeing a 1980 Kennedy half dollar, and at first glance, it doesn't look like it could possibly be worth more than 50 cents. Look closely at the condition. The surfaces have that soft, dull gray look that tells you this coin has been in and out of pockets and cash drawers for years. The high spots in the hair are smooth and blended together, not crisp. Kennedy's cheek and jawline show gentle, even wear, and there are scattered little contact marks around the face and in the open fields. Tiny hits from bumping against other coins. Down near the date, you can see a small dark area and a bit of discoloration around the neck. The original shine is mostly gone, replaced by that worked-hard look you see on most coins from your change. The rim is complete, but not razor-sharp. This is an honest, circulated 1980 half dollar. In this shape, a normal 1980 is basically worth face value. Maybe someone pays a tiny premium if they need it for an album, but to the bank, it's just 50 cents. And with tens of millions made in 1980, that sounds about right. If you stop there. But if you stop there, you could be walking away from the kind of money that changes somebody's life. Let's talk about just how common this date really is. Between the main mints, over 77 million 1980 halves rolled off the presses. By 1980, people weren't excited about half dollars anymore. They were big. Vending machines didn't like them, and most of them went straight into bags, rolls, and storage. Collectors thought, modern stuff, who cares? That attitude is exactly what allows a tiny number of extraordinary coins to hide in plain sight for decades. Now imagine the complete opposite of the coin you're holding. Picture a 1980 that never saw a single day of circulation. Full mint luster blazing from edge to edge, every little line sharp, no scratches on the cheek, no spots on the neck, no dull gray anywhere. Graded by a major service at the very top of the scale, this kind of 1980 already brings serious money. The finest known 1980D examples have sold for thousands of dollars. We're talking the cost of a nice vacation for a coin that most people would have spent on a soda. And that's without any errors. Where the numbers really explode is when you combine top condition with a major mint mistake. In 1980, the mint was also striking Susan B. Anthony dollars. Every now and then, a blank intended for that smaller dollar coin slipped under the presses for half dollars. That means some 1980 halves were struck on the wrong metal disc. A lighter, thinner planchet. To the naked eye, they look almost normal. But when you put one on a scale, it comes up several grams light. Those wrong planchet 1980s have sold for hundreds and even over $1,000, and that's for coins that aren't even perfect. Now, let's turn up the dial. Picture this scenario. A 1980 half struck on a completely different experimental planchet, maybe a leftover high silver blank from a special run or a foreign metal the mint was testing. Not only is the metal wrong, but the strike is powerful and sharp. On top of that, the die used to make the front of the coin has a dramatic doubled image in the motto or the date. Something you can see clearly without squinting. Somehow, that coin never makes it into circulation. It gets pulled aside in a small group of uncirculated pieces, maybe in a bank bag or a forgotten roll, and it sits untouched for more than 40 years, fast forward to today. A collector like you opens that roll. Most of the coins are nice, but one feels different. It has a strange color, or it feels just a little heavier in the hand. Maybe the date looks doubled. That coin goes off to a grading service. They weigh it, test the metal, examine the doubling, and confirm the nightmare scenario for the mint and the dream scenario for the owner. Wrong planchet. Dramatic doubled die. Blazing, uncirculated, and the highest grade they've ever given to a 1980. At that moment, you're not dealing with a pocket piece anymore. You're holding a one-of-a-kind trophy. A coin like that pulls in 3 different kinds of big money buyers. Kennedy half specialists who want every major variety, error collectors who chase wrong planchet and double die pieces, and registry set builders who pay top dollar for the single finest example of each date. Put all of them in the same auction room and the sky is the limit. A unique 1980 wrong planchet, double die, half dollar, in nearly perfect condition could realistically rocket into the high 6 figures. With the right story and eye appeal, it's easy to imagine the bidding racing past $300,000, then $400,000, and finally settling somewhere around $460,000 when that hammer hits. Now, how do you connect that crazy auction story to the worn 1980 you're looking at right now? This coin shows you what almost every 1980 looks like today: circulated, toned, dinged up, and worth 50 cents. But it also reminds you of why the rare ones are so valuable. The more coins that end up like this, scratched, worn, and melted down, the smaller the pool of high-grade survivors becomes. That's why a single MS-68 example can bring thousands. That's why a spectacular error in that grade can bring house money. So here's what you should do anytime you see 1980 on a half dollar. First, separate the circulated ones like this from anything that still has strong luster. The worn examples are great teaching tools and still spendable, but they're usually just face value. The bright, sharp ones deserve a closer look. Weigh them. A normal 1980 half should be about 11.34 grams. If one comes in way light or way heavy, that's a red flag. Then, under good light, tilt the coin back and forth and look closely at the motto and the date. Do you see a clear second outline on any of the letters or numbers? That could be a doubled die. Check the rim too. If the design looks shifted toward one side or part of it seems missing, you might be looking at an off-center strike or a broad strike error. Even if you never find the $1 million combination, remember that there are still steps along the ladder. A common circulated 1980 like this is worth 50 cents. A nice uncirculated example might be worth a few dollars. A top-end certified piece can bring thousands. A dramatic error in high grade can bring tens of thousands. And that once-in-a-lifetime wrong planchet double die in nearly perfect shape. That's the $460,000 story that keeps collectors opening rolls and checking every single date. The point is simple. Modern doesn't mean worthless. Dates from the 1980s, the ones people grew up spending at the grocery store, can hide the biggest money of all if you know what to look for. So, don't toss those 1980 halves into a junk pile just because they look like this one. Use coins like this as practice. Study the wear. Learn how a normal coin feels in your hand and what normal weight looks like on the scale. That way, when the day comes that you pick up a 1980 that feels just a little off, your instincts will tell you to stop, to check, and maybe, just maybe, to send it in. Stick around, because the next Kennedy half in this countdown takes that same modern date danger to another level, with a year and a story that will have you rechecking every roll you thought was searched years ago. Next up, let's talk about a year almost nobody ever bothers to check. And that's exactly why this one can sting if you miss it. On your screen right now is a 1979 Kennedy half dollar. At first glance, it looks like the kind of coin you might get from the bank in a roll and toss straight into a jar without thinking twice. Look closely at the condition. The surface has that soft, muted gray look that tells us this coin has seen real circulation. The original bright shine is mostly gone. Across the face, you can see tiny contact marks, little nicks, and hairline scratches from years of bumping into other coins. The high points of the head are smooth, not sharp, especially along the top and back of the hair. Down near the motto, there's a light brownish streak cutting across the lower part of the neck and the words, "We trust." That stain is a classic sign of age and handling. Maybe moisture, maybe something it sat against for years. The rim is full, but not razor sharp, with slight softening from wear. This is an honest, circulated 1979. In this condition, a normal example is worth face value, 50 cents, maybe a little more if someone is paying by the roll. Nothing in this picture screams rare at first, and that's the danger. The rarest 1979s don't look any different in a quick glance. They hide in plain sight. Let's put this date in context for a second. By 1979, the big silver era was long gone. These halves are copper nickel, no silver at all. The mint struck tens of millions of them. Most ended up exactly like this one, tossed in drawers, used at casinos, rolled up by banks. Collectors considered them too new and not worth checking. They were busy chasing older silver dates. That attitude is exactly what lets a tiny handful of spectacular 1979s slip under the radar. Now imagine the opposite of the coin you're seeing. Picture a 1979 that never saw a single day of circulation. The surfaces are bright and satiny from edge to edge. No dull gray, no big spots, no distracting marks on the cheek. Under a good light, that coin flashes as you tilt it, with every little contour sharp and crisp. A grading service might call that a top pop piece, one of the best they've ever seen for the date. Even without any error, a 1979 graded at the top of the scale can bring serious money. We've already seen standard 1979 halves in ultra-high grade sell for several $1,000s, just because they are the finest known examples. That's a huge jump from 50 cents. But we're not chasing huge. We're chasing jaw-dropping. This is where mint errors and special varieties change everything. In 1979, the mint was also striking Susan B. Anthony dollars. Occasionally, a blank intended for those smaller dollars slipped under the presses for half dollars. That means a few 1979 halves were struck on the wrong metal disc, different size, different weight. To the naked eye, they can look almost normal. But when you put one on a scale, the numbers don't match a regular half. Known wrong planchet pieces like this have already sold for hundreds and even over $1,000, and that's for coins that are not perfect. Now push that idea one step further. Imagine a 1979 half that ends up on an experimental or foreign planchet, a blank of unusual metal the mint was testing, and it's struck perfectly with a strong, even impression. On top of that, the die used to make the front of the coin has a dramatic, doubled image in the date or the motto. When you tilt the coin in the light, you can clearly see a second set of numbers or letters, not just a slight blur, but real, bold doubling. Somehow, that coin never makes it into circulation. Instead of turning into something dull and worn like the piece you're seeing now, it gets stuck in a small bag of new halves that ended up sitting untouched in a bank vault for decades. Maybe an employee took the bag home as part of a collection starter kit. It sits in a closet, forgotten. 40-plus years later, someone opens it. Most of the coins are just nice, bright 1979 halves. But one stands out. It feels wrong in the hand, a little lighter or heavier, or it has a strange color tone. The date looks odd. That coin goes off to a grading service. They weigh it, test the metal, study that doubling under powerful magnification, and confirm the dream. Wrong planchet, bold, doubled, die, and an almost perfect grade. The only one they've ever seen exactly like it. At that point, you're not talking about a curiosity worth a couple $100s. You're talking about a showpiece. When a coin like that hits the auction block, it draws 3 different crowds at once. Modern coin specialists who chase top grades, error collectors who live for wrong planchet pieces, and Kennedy half fanatics who want the key coin for every date. When those groups lock in on the same lot number, bidding can go from calm to crazy in seconds. A unique 1979 wrong planchet double die $half in blazing uncirculated condition has the kind of profile that could push its price into the high 6-figure range. Realistically, in today's market, with the right story and marketing behind it, it's easy to see that coin climbing past $300,000, then $400,000, and finally landing in the neighborhood of $485,000 when the hammer falls, all from a date most people would have thrown in a change dish. So what do you do with that information when you have ordinary 1979s like this one in front of you? Start where you are. This coin shows the normal life of a 1979 half. Worn surfaces, scratches, a brownish streak near the motto. Slightly soft high points. These are the coins you can safely count as face value. They're great as teaching tools and collection fillers, but they won't pay off the mortgage. The ones you need to slow down for are the sharp, bright 1979s that look like they never left the bank. When you find one with full luster, hold it by the edge and give it a spin under a strong light. Look at the date and each word carefully. Do you see a clear second outline or a thick separated image on any of the letters or numbers? That could be a true doubled die. Then weigh the coin. A normal 1979 half should hit the standard copper nickel weight. If it's significantly off, not just a tiny fraction, but clearly different, that's your red flag for a wrong planchet. Also, pay attention to the rim. Is everything centered, or is one side of the rim much wider than the other? Any obvious shift could be an off-center strike. Combine a dramatic off-center with high grade, and you're now in strong 4- or 5-figure territory, even without a wrong planchet. The coin you're seeing right now is like the before picture in our story. It shows what happens to most 1979 halves. They work, they wear, they fade. The treasures are the few that never got this beat up, or that were born with something very wrong at the mint. Those are the coins that bring the kind of money people remember for the rest of their lives. So the next time you dump out a bag or a roll of half dollars and see 1979, don't just shrug and move on. Separate the shiny from the dull. Weigh the strange ones. Check for bold doubling. 99 out of 100 will be like the coin in this image. A piece of history worth 50 cents. But that one coin, that slightly different 1979, could be the $485,000 surprise sitting quietly in your hand. And we're still not done. Keep watching, because the next Kennedy half in this countdown takes the idea of ordinary date shocking value to a whole new level, with a story that might send you right back to your old coin jars the moment this video ends. Our next coin proves you do not have to go back to the 1960s or 70s to find serious money. On your screen now is a 1993 D Kennedy half dollar from the Denver Mint. A coin that, to most people, screams modern pocket change. But to the right collector, the right example of this date can scream something very different. Life-changing value. Let's start with what you can actually see. This particular 1993 D has nice eye appeal, but it's not perfect. The surfaces still have a good bit of original shine, especially across the center of the coin. When you tilt it in the light, you'd see that cartwheel effect spinning around. But look a little closer and you'll notice plenty of small contact marks in the open areas. Little ticks from being stacked and rubbed against other halves. The highest points of the hair in the cheek are a bit muted. Not flat and dull like a heavily worn coin, but just softly rounded, like it might have spent a short time in circulation or been moved around in rolls. Down near the date, you can clearly see that D mint mark, and the numbers are still strong and sharp. The rim is full all the way around without any big dings or cuts. Overall, this is what many collectors would call an about uncirculated to low-end uncirculated coin. Attractive, with plenty of luster left, but not a top-shelf gem. In this sort of condition, a normal 1993 D is basically a spender. Maybe somebody pays $1 or $2 if they need it to fill a hole in an album. That's it. The Denver Mint cranked out over 15 million of these. So in everyday grades, they are absolutely everywhere. But that's only half the story. The other half is that very, very few of those 15 million survived in truly pristine condition. Most ended up like the coin you're seeing now, slid across counters, rolled in bank wrappers, tossed in jars, nicked and bag marked. The number of coins that stayed locked away, never touched by human hands, is tiny by comparison. When you jump up into the highest uncirculated grades, the MS-67s and MS-68s, things change fast. A regular 1993 D graded MS-68 by a major service has already sold for strong four-figure money. We're talking more than $2,500 for a single modern half dollar with no silver content at all, just because it's almost perfect. And almost nobody saved them that nice. And we haven't even touched the error side yet. Now, remember what else was going on at the Mint around this time. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Mint was busy striking all kinds of denominations, including Susan B. Anthony dollars and copper nickel quarters. Whenever you have millions of coins and different planchets running through big presses, mistakes can and do happen. For the Kennedy series, wrong planchet strikes are some of the most dramatic. That's when a half dollar gets struck on metal meant for another coin. A quarter, a dollar, sometimes even a foreign piece. We've seen Kennedy halves from other years struck on Susan B. Anthony dollar planchets sell for over $11,000. And halves accidentally struck on penny planchets bring thousands more. And that's for coins that aren't even top grade. On top of that, you can have double die varieties where the date or the letters show a clear extra image. Most 1993 D double dies are minor, but every so often a bold one slips out, thick separated lines you can see without a magnifying glass. Those are the coins that get collectors excited. Now imagine stacking all of those factors together on a single 1993 D. Picture this: A 1993D half-dollar struck on an experimental copper-nickel planchet the mint was testing. Slightly different metal mix, slightly different weight. The strike is powerful and fully centered. The surfaces come out blazing. No nicks, no spots, just booming luster. And then add one more thing. The obverse die has a strong double date and motto. When you tilt the coin, you can clearly see two sets of numbers in 1993 and a thick, step-like doubling in God We Trust. That coin never goes into circulation. Instead, it ends up in a sealed mint bag, then in a Federal Reserve vault, then forgotten in storage. Decades pass. Finally, a sharp-eyed collector or dealer opens that bag, starts checking each half, and this one jumps out. It feels a little off in the hand. The weight doesn't quite match. The date looks strange. Off it goes to a grading service. There, the experts weigh it and confirm the planchet is wrong. They test the metal. It's an experimental alloy, not standard Kennedy metal. Under high magnification, they study the doubling, and it's dramatic enough to qualify as a major variety. Then they grade it. No rub on the high points, no serious marks. They put MS-68 on the label, the highest grade any 1993D error has ever received. Now you've got a coin that is not just rare, it's unique, the only one of its kind. When something like that hits a major auction, the bidding war can get wild. Modern coin specialists want it because it's the ultimate 1993D. Error collectors want it because it's a dream combination. Wrong planchet and bold double die in a top grade. Kennedy half-dollar fans want it as the centerpiece of their entire collection. You've got three powerful buyer groups all chasing one coin. With that kind of demand and that kind of story, it's completely realistic for a piece like this to rocket straight past the normal four-figure range and into the high six figures. A unique experimental planchet double die 1993. D, Kennedy, half in MS-68, could easily break the $300,000 mark. Then $400,000. And in the right market, push up into the neighborhood of $510,000 when the hammer finally falls. $500,000 for a date most people think is too new to matter. So how do you turn this into something practical when you're going through your own 1993D halves? First, separate them by condition. Pieces that look dull, with clear wear on the cheek and hair, are circulated. Those are worth 50 cents each. Good for teaching and for filling albums, but not the big money. Next, pull aside anything that still has strong original luster, coins that shine like the one in your picture. Examine those under good light. Look closely at the date and each word. Do you see any thick doubled outlines on the letters or numbers? Real doubled dies will show separation, not just a fuzzy shadow from the coin moving. Then if you have a scale, weigh them. A normal 1993D Kennedy should be right around 1130 grams. If a coin is significantly light or heavy, that's your first hint you might be dealing with a wrong planchet. Those are the ones worth sending in for a professional opinion. Even if you never find that $500,000 monster, remember the ladder of value. A circulated 1993D like the ones you see in change is 50 cents. A nice uncirculated coin might be a few dollars. A certified gem at the very top of the grading scale can bring thousands. And that once-in-a-generation wrong planchet, double die, and MS-68? That's the kind of coin that can rewrite someone's retirement plan. The coin you're seeing now sits somewhere in the middle of that story. Better than pocket change, not quite a gem. But it's your reminder that even dates from the 1990s can pack a shocking punch if everything lines up. Stay tuned, because the next Kennedy half in this series takes that same idea, an ordinary-looking coin hiding extraordinary value, and cranks it up one more notch. You may never look at your modern pocket change the same way again. Sliding right along the timeline, our next coin comes from the heart of the 1980s, and this one proves that even the boring years can hide the biggest shocks. You're looking at a 1985 D. Kennedy $half from the Denver Mint, a date most people would spend without thinking twice. And that's exactly why you need to pay attention. Take a good look at the condition of this coin. The surfaces have that dull grayish look that tells you the original mint shine is mostly gone. There are light scratches and tiny contact marks scattered all over the fields like little tracks from years of bumping into other coins. Across the hair and the cheek you can see real wear. The highest points are smooth, not sharp, and the details blend together a bit. Down around the motto and the date, you can spot small nicks and faint discoloration from handling. The rim is complete, but it's not crisp and razor sharp like a coin that just left a mint set. This is an honest, circulated 1985 D. The kind of $half that's been through cash drawers, maybe a casino, maybe a few vending machines. In collector terms, we'd call this somewhere in the very fine to extremely fine range. And in this grade, a normal 1985 D is worth about what you'd expect, 50 cents. Maybe a tiny premium if someone needs one for an album, but that's about it. So how in the world can a 1985 D $half turn into serious money, real treasure, instead of pocket change? Let's start with how common it is. The Denver Mint struck almost 20 million of these copper-nickel halves in 1985. No silver, no special finish, just workhorse coins meant to circulate. Because they were modern, hardly anyone bothered to save them. They got tossed into big bags, shoved into bankrolls, and pushed across counters all over America. That's exactly why high-grade survivors are surprisingly tough today. Now imagine the complete opposite of the coin in front of you. Picture a 1985 D that never took a single ride in a cash register. It went straight from the press into a mint-sealed bag, then into a collection. The surfaces are blazing with original luster, that bright cartwheel effect spinning as you tilt it. The cheek is smooth and clean without those little dings you see here. The high points of the hair are crisp, with no flattening at all. A grading service looks at that coin and says, "This isn't just uncirculated. This is one of the finest we've ever seen for 1985 D." In recent years, top pop 1985 D halves graded at the very high end of the mint state scale have sold for strong four-figure money. We're talking thousands of dollars for a coin that most people would have dropped in a tip jar. That's already a big jump from 50 cents. And that's with no major error. But as you know, the huge dollars in modern $half show up when a perfect or near-perfect coin is combined with a serious mint mistake. During the mid-1980s, the mint was striking all kinds of denominations in the same facilities. Quarters, halves, dollars, even coins for other countries. Every time you have different planchets and different dies moving through the presses, there's a chance for things to go wrong. That's how we get wrong planchet coins, off-center strikes, and those wild double-die varieties that collectors chase like lottery tickets. Now I want you to picture a what-if that will send a chill down any collector's spine. Now imagine a 1985 D. Kennedy $half that accidentally gets struck on the wrong metal blank. Maybe a planchet meant for a Susan B. Anthony dollar, or even an experimental foreign piece. The size is a little off, the weight isn't quite what it should be, and the color has a slightly different tone. On top of that, the die used on the front has a bold doubled image in the date and the motto. When you tilt the coin under a light, you can plainly see two sets of numbers in 1985 and a thick, stepped outline in God We Trust. Now combine those errors with a perfect strike and almost no marks, the kind of surfaces that earn a grade like MS 68 or even MS 69. The grading service runs it through every test, confirms the wrong planchet, confirms the dramatic double die, and then labels it the single finest 1985D error they've ever certified. At that moment, that poor little modern $half stops being a piece of loose change and becomes a trophy. In a big auction, that kind of coin pulls in three powerful groups: Kennedy $half specialists, error coin fanatics, and modern coin registry collectors who will pay almost anything to own the number one example for their set. They're not thinking about face value. They're thinking about bragging rights, registry scores, and owning the coin every other collector has to dream about. Get those people bidding against each other, and the numbers start to jump very fast. A unique 1985D wrong planchet, bold double die $half in MS68 or MS69 territory could easily burst past the normal 4- and 5-figure range and climb into the high six figures. With the right story, the right certification, and two determined bidders, you're realistically looking at a hammer price in the neighborhood of $530,000. Yes, over $500,000, tied to a date most people never even glance at. So where does that leave the coin you're seeing right now? This example shows you what almost every 1985D looks like today: circulated, worn, marked up, and worth 50 cents. Coins in this grade are great teaching pieces. You can feel the wear on the high points, you can see how the luster disappears, and you can study what normal looks like. They'll fill a hole in a folder, but they're not paying off anyone's house. What you're hunting for are the survivors that never turned into this. When you're searching rolls or old jars for valuable $half, here's what to do with 1985D. First, sort by shine. Any coin that looks dull and gray like this one goes in the spent pile. The ones with full bright luster, the ones that flash when you tilt them, go in the keep pile. Second, on those lustrous coins, check the date and the words very carefully under good light. A real double die on a Kennedy half will show clear, separated images, especially on the numbers and the motto. You're not looking for a fuzzy shadow. You're looking for a second outline you can actually see. Third, if you've got a scale, weigh any 1985D that looks or feels different. A normal copper nickel $half should sit right around 11.3 grams. If a coin is significantly light or heavy, that's your warning sign that the planchet might be wrong. Those are the pieces you don't just toss back. Those are the ones you send in. Even without the fantasy level error, remember there's still a ladder of value. A circulated 1985D like the one in the picture is 50 cents. A sharp, uncirculated coin with decent eye appeal might be worth a couple of dollars. A certified top pop gem can bring thousands, and that once-in-a-lifetime wrong planchet, double die 1985D, in almost perfect condition? That's your $530,000 story. So the next time you crack open a roll of $half and you see 1985D, don't dismiss it as too new. Separate, study, weigh, and look for anything unusual. 99 times out of 100, you'll be holding what you see here, a worn-down worker worth its face value. But that one remaining coin, that bright, strange, slightly off 1985, could be the rare $half that changes how you think about modern coins, why QSI, and maybe even changes your bank account. And we're still climbing. Stay with me because the next Kennedy half in this lineup takes the idea of hidden treasure in everyday dates to an even more unbelievable level, with a year you probably spent hundreds of times without ever checking. Next up, we're jumping into a year almost nobody thinks twice about. And that's exactly why this one can sneak up on you. On your screen right now is a 1983 Kennedy $half from Philadelphia. A coin most people would toss in a change jar without a second look-see, even though the right 1983 could be worth more than a house. Let's start with the piece you're seeing. Look closely at the surface. The original bright mint shine is mostly gone. Instead, it has that flat grayish look that tells us this coin has spent real time in circulation. There are tiny scratches and contact marks scattered across the fields and on the face, like little highways carved by other coins sliding over it in pockets and cash drawers. Across the hair and the cheek, the high points are soft and rounded. They're not sharp and crisp anymore. That's honest wear from years of use. Down near the date 1983, the numbers are still clear, but you can see faint rubbing and a little discoloration from handling. The rim is full, no giant dings or gouges, but it's not razor sharp either. In collector language, this is a solid circulated coin, somewhere around very fine to extremely fine. For a normal 1983 half dollar in this condition, the value is simple, 50 cents. Maybe someone pays a tiny premium if they need this date to fill a hole, but for most people, this one spends like any other half dollar. So, how does a date like 1983 jump from pocket change to a serious coins worth money superstar? To answer that, we need to remember what was happening in 1983. The silver days were gone. These halves are copper nickel clad. No silver content at all. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 34 million of them. They were made to work, not to be collected. Most went straight into circulation, bounced through banks, casinos, and stores, and ended up looking just like this coin. Worn, dull, and ordinary. Because they were considered common, almost nobody set aside perfect rolls or bags of 1983 half dollars. That means today, high-grade, untouched 1983s are much scarcer than you'd think. The vast majority are like the one you're looking at. The rare ones are the coins that never got the chance to be abused. Now picture the complete opposite of the coin in your hand. Imagine a 1983 that came off the press with blazing, icy luster. No dull patches, no haze, just a bright cartwheel flash when you tilt it under the light. The cheek is clean. No big hits, no chatter. The high points of the hair are sharp and full. A grading service takes one look and says, this is not just uncirculated, and this is one of the finest 1983s we've ever seen. Those top pop grades can already bring thousands of dollars, even on a so-called modern no silver Kennedy half. But we're not stopping at thousands. The real jump from valuable to jaw-dropping comes when that top-grade coin is born with a serious mint mistake. The kind of error that turns a regular half dollar into one of the most valuable half-dollar coins ever made. In 1983, the mint was striking multiple denominations in the same facilities: quarters, halves, and dollars, even coins for other countries. Whenever you have different blank planchets and different dies moving through big, noisy presses, you get the chance for something to go wrong. That's where error coins worth money come from. For this date, you can have off-center strikes, broad strikes that spread out the rim, missing initials on the back, and especially wrong planchet strikes. When a half dollar is struck on metal meant for another coin. We've seen wrong planchet Kennedy halves from other years sell for several $1,000s, even in only average mint state grades. Now picture a once-in-a-lifetime combination. Imagine a 1983 half dollar that accidentally lands on an experimental copper-nickel planchet the mint was testing. Slightly different metal mix, slightly off in weight. The strike is strong and centered. Every tiny detail comes out. On top of that, the front die has a bold doubled image in the date and the motto. When you tilt the coin, you can clearly see a second outline in 1983 and a thick, step-like doubling in God We Trust. Not a little shadow, but real, obvious doubling you can see with the naked eye. This coin never makes it into circulation. Instead, it ends up trapped in a sealed bag of brand new halves that gets lost in a bank vault or tucked away in the back of a mint shipment. For decades, nobody bothers to open it. Then one day, a collector buys the old bag as part of a hoard and decides to search for rare half dollars. They start pulling coins out one by one. Most are just bright, normal 1983s. Then they see this one. The color looks a bit off. The weight on the scale doesn't match the standard 11.3 grams. The date looks strange. Off it goes to a grading service. And last up in this lineup, we're going to a year most people think is completely safe to spend, 1971. This is the first year the Kennedy half was made with no silver at all. And that's exactly why almost nobody ever bothered to look twice at them. Big mistake. Take a close look at the coin on your screen. This 1971 half dollar has clearly seen real life. The surfaces have that flat gray look that tells you the original mint shine is mostly gone. Across the hair and cheek, the high spots are soft and smooth instead of sharp and crisp. That's honest circulation wear from pockets, change drawers, and coin machines over many years. If you look in the open areas around the portrait, you can see lots of tiny contact marks and light scratches, little hits from bumping into other coins in bags and rolls. Down near the motto and the date, the letters are still readable, but they're not bold. The edge around the coin, the rim, is full, but not razor sharp anymore. Overall, this is what collectors would call a solid circulated example, probably in the fine to very fine range. And in this kind of condition, a normal 1971 half dollar is worth right around face value, 50 cents. Maybe a tiny premium if someone just needs one for a basic collection, but that's the honest truth for coins that look like this. So how does a date like 1971 end up on a list of half-dollar coins worth serious money? To understand that, you have to remember the history. In 1964, these halves were 90% silver. From 1965 through 1970, they were struck in 40% silver. But in 1971, the mint shut the door on silver and switched completely to copper-nickel clad. Philadelphia alone made well over 150 million 1971 halves. They were built to be workhorses. People treated them like tokens, not treasure. And because everybody believed no silver means no value, hardly anyone saved them in top condition. Coins just like the one you're seeing went straight into casino trays, vending machines, and bankrolls. They got beat up. They got worn down. That's why finding a truly pristine 1971 in high uncirculated grade is tougher than the mintage numbers make it look. In average mint state, what collectors call MS60 to MS63, these are still only worth a couple dollars apiece. But jump to the very top of the grading scale, MS67 and beyond, and the number of surviving coins drops like a rock. Suddenly you're talking about pieces that can bring thousands of dollars at auction just because they're the absolute finest known for registry sets. But that's only the first step. The real shock comes when you mix that kind of top-grade condition with a serious mint error. Remember, 1971 was the crossover year. The mint was still dealing with leftover 40% silver planchets from 1970, while starting up full production of the new copper-nickel halves. Whenever you have two different metals, two different thicknesses, and millions of blanks moving around big bins, mistakes can happen. We know for a fact that some 1971 D halves were struck on leftover 40% silver planchets. Those have already sold for strong four-figure money in circulated grades, several $1,000s for examples that aren't even perfect. That tells you right away how powerful the wrong metal story is. Now imagine pushing that to the extreme. Picture this, a 1971 half dollar that somehow ends up on an experimental planchet. Maybe the mint was testing a different alloy, slightly richer in silver, slightly heavier, a little different color. The blank slips into the press with the regular 1971 dies. The strike is strong. The surfaces come out blazing. Full bright luster spinning like a mirror when you tilt it. Then add one more twist. The obverse die has a bold doubled image. When you look at the date, you can see two sets of numbers for 1971 with a clear stepped outline. No magnifier needed. The words in the motto show the same effect, thick and obviously doubled. That coin doesn't go to the bank. Maybe it drops into a test tray at the mint. Maybe an employee notices it looks funny and pulls it aside. Somehow, instead of getting melted, it ends up in a small envelope, then into a box, then into a safe, and it sleeps there for decades, untouched. Years later, the box is opened. A collector or dealer starts going through it, and this coin jumps out. It's heavier than a normal 1971. The ring it makes when it's tapped lightly is different. The color seems just a shade off, and that double date is screaming for attention. They send it to a grading service. The experts weigh it, not at the standard clad weight. They test the metal, higher silver content than any regular 1971 should have. They look at the doubling under high magnification and certify it as a major double die obverse. Then they grade the surfaces, and it comes back MS-68. Almost perfect. No wear, almost no marks. A once-in-a-lifetime combination. Now you got something totally unique. The only known 1971 experimental alloy wrong planchet half with a bold double die in ultra gem condition. It's not just rare, it's a trophy. When a coin like that hits a major auction, 3 different groups wake up. You got Kennedy half specialists who absolutely must have the king of 1971. You got error coin collectors who dream about wrong planchet pieces. And you got registry set builders who want the finest known example of every year, no matter the price. They all pile into the same auction lot. The bidding doesn't start at 50 cents. It doesn't start at $50. It starts in the thousands and goes straight up. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. At some point, it stops being about the money and becomes about bragging rights. I own the 1971. With 2 or 3 determined bidders, it's completely realistic for a coin like this to cross 300,000, then 4, and land in the neighborhood of $610,000 when the hammer finally comes down. Over $600,000, tied to the same date that most people drop in a parking meter without a second thought. So, what does all that mean for the 1971 you're seeing right now? This coin shows you what almost every 1971 looks like today, worn, circulated with the luster gone and the high points flattened. In this condition, it's a good teaching piece. And a fun find, but it's a 50-cent coin. The treasure is in the survivors that never ended up like this. If you're searching rolls or old jars for half-dollar coins worth money, here's exactly what to do with 1971. First, separate by shine. Anything that looks dull and gray like the coin on your screen goes into the spend pile. The ones that are bright with strong original luster go into the check carefully pile. Second, on those bright pieces, study the date and the words under a good light. Look for thick, clear doubling, 2 separated images on the numbers or letters, not just a shadow or blur. Third, if something feels off, weigh it. A normal 1971 clad half should be about 11.3 grams. If your coin is noticeably heavier or lighter, that's your red flag for a wrong planchet. Circulated 1971s are 50 cents. Nice uncirculated 1971s are a few dollars. Top-up certified gems can be worth thousands. And that once-and-forever experimental alloy, double-die 1971 in near-perfect condition, that's the kind of hidden treasure that can touch $610,000 and completely rewrite somebody's idea of what modern pocket change is really worth. So the next time you see a 1971 half in your change, don't just shrug and spend it. Check it, weigh it, study it, because as you've seen all through this video, the most ordinary-looking half-dollar coins can hide the most extraordinary value.